Welcome to Candle of Wisdom. Today, I want to share something I believe is important for many seniors who have already retired. This piece of advice may go against what most retirees are told. If your health still allows, consider finding a small job or project to earn a bit of money. Not because you're desperate for it, but because staying active, engaged, and useful brings more value to your golden years than you might think. You see, retirement isn't the finish line, it's a new chapter. One that can last 10, 20, even 30 years. And yet, many people have no real plan for this time. Life doesn't suddenly become easier just because you've stopped working. In fact, for many, it becomes harder in unexpected ways. There's this idea, called Dunbar's number or the 150 rule, that even though we may know hundreds of people throughout our lives, we only truly connect deeply with maybe a dozen or two. And by the time we hit our 70s, some of those folks have drifted away or passed on. At that point, do you really want to force yourself into someone else's world just to feel less alone? What if, instead, you fully embraced your own world, your own interests, your own time, your own space? For many people, the first few months of retirement feel like freedom. No alarm clocks, no meetings, no bosses. You can sleep in, ignore emails, do whatever you like. It feels like vacation until it doesn't. After a while, that freedom becomes aimlessness. You find yourself asking, what do I do today? And more often than not, the answer is nothing. That's when the joy starts fading. The spark dims. Life becomes blurry, like a dream you can't quite wake up from. But youth isn't just about age. It's about spirit. And that spirit can live on in anyone who keeps moving forward, learning, trying, doing. That's why I believe every retiree, if your health allows, should find some small way to earn a little money. Not to pay the bills, not to build a retirement empire, but to keep yourself engaged, grounded, and growing. As the writer Annie Dillard once said, how you spend your idle time determines the value of your life. And I couldn't agree more. There's a man named Bill in my neighborhood, 78 years old. Every morning, he sets up a small workbench outside his garage and repairs bicycles and lawnmowers. Charges a fair price. Doesn't advertise. He doesn't need to. Word of mouth keeps him busy enough. Some people say, Bill, you're too old for this. Why don't you take it easy? But Bill just laughs. Sitting around all day is harder on me than work, he says. This keeps me sharp, keeps me social. And hey, buys a steak now and then for dinner. He even takes some of the money to treat his grandkids to candy from a corner shop. The joy it brings him, you can't put a price on that. Then there's Linda, a retired school teacher who decided to finally take that cross-country trip she'd always dreamed about. But she didn't just travel for sightseeing. She recorded her experiences, wrote travel blogs, and uploaded videos to YouTube. Her channel grew slowly but steadily, and eventually began to earn her some side income. More importantly, she rediscovered her creativity. Every town brought a new story, a new flavor, a new friend. When she finally returned home, she had memories, footage, and even enough cash to start planning the next adventure. She once told me, yes, I'm a wife and a mom, but I'm still me. I didn't want to be defined only by laundry and casseroles. I needed something of my own. And who could forget Mr. Henry? Lives in Houston. Every morning, rain or shine, he rides his tricycle cart through the neighborhood, delivering groceries and picking up recyclables. Doesn't make a ton, but that's not the point. The point is, he shows up. And in doing so, he shows his heart. Most of the money he earns, he sets aside to sponsor school lunches for low-income kids at a nearby elementary school. It gives me purpose, he says, and that keeps me alive. You see, earning money in retirement isn't always about the cash. It's about connection, routine, movement, a reason to get up and get dressed, a reason to smile at someone and be smiled at in return. Contrast that with my neighbor John, lovely guy who used to be a project manager. But when he retired, he just stopped. No hobbies. No friends he saw regularly. His days blended together. TV in the morning, naps in the afternoon, maybe a walk if the weather was nice. He thought maybe reconnecting with old coworkers would help, so he arranged a lunch. sent out messages. A dozen people said they'd come. On the day of, only 2 showed up. The rest? Canceled, grandkids to babysit, family issues, last-minute changes. He was disappointed, but not defeated. So he tried again with his high school friends. This time, the responses were more direct. Too far to travel. Busy with family. Let's do it another time. That another time never came. And slowly, John began to understand. Time doesn't wait. And nostalgia isn't enough to fill a lonely room. John began to feel it more each day. The weight of time without direction. He wasn't old in spirit, but without structure, without purpose, he was drifting. There's a saying by French writer Romain Rolland. The heaviest burden in life isn't work, it's boredom. And isn't that the truth? Retirement for many is the dream of doing nothing. No deadlines, no alarms, no commutes. But when every day feels like a Sunday morning, when nothing is expected of you, it starts to eat at you. Slowly, quietly, until one day, you wake up and wonder if you matter anymore. Because let's be honest, how many of us have seen this happen? People who once ran meetings and juggled responsibilities now fill their time watching reruns, flipping through old photos, or just sitting by the window, watching the world pass by. That's when some people turn to social groups, chess clubs, morning coffee cliques, walking circles. And don't get me wrong, they can be wonderful. But here's the catch. Do you actually enjoy them? Or are you just afraid of being home alone? There's Edith. Sweet lady. Early 70s. A friend of mine. She joined a community walking group after retiring. But her knees weren't great, and the early mornings left her exhausted. Still, she kept going because her friends insisted. When I asked if she liked it, she hesitated and said, "It's fine. Better than being by myself." Better than being by myself. That's the reason so many retirees force themselves into routines that don't serve them. They don't want to feel left out. So they play cards when they hate cards. They sit through loud brunches when all they want is peace and tea on the porch. And when the stakes rise, say a little gambling during poker night. Things get messy, eh? Frank, 67, started joining a local poker game every Friday. It began as fun $5 games, but gradually, the stakes crept up. He wasn't playing to win anymore. He was trying to chase the thrill, escape the silence of his house. Soon, he was coming home frustrated, snapping at his wife, embarrassed at how much he'd lost again. And if he won, that wasn't better, because then the others started resenting him. The game turned bitter. Competition crept into friendships. Retirement isn't supposed to be a second adolescence where you have to prove yourself again. But that's what it becomes for many when they don't take the time to choose peace over performance. Socializing is important, yes, but it must be sincere. If you're constantly worried about what to wear, who's coming, or what small gift you need to bring just to be accepted, is that joy or just obligation? And then there are the free gift events, the so-called promotions at malls or rec centers. Maybe you've seen them too. Come to this seminar and get a free toothbrush. Show up and receive a carton of eggs. Take a free trip, but you'll have to pay for the attractions once you arrive. It's not the gifts that bother me. It's the dignity we trade away chasing them. I've seen entire groups of seniors camp outside a retail store at 7 a.m. just to get a bar of soap. Not because they need it, but because everyone else was going. This herd effect is real and dangerous. There's a small shopping complex in my town. The first floor is bustling, but the second floor, always empty. So management got clever. Every morning they offer a deal. Climb the escalator and receive a free hard-boiled egg or a tofu snack. It worked. Seniors flocked in. Some even brought partners and swapped days. You go Monday, I'll go Tuesday, so they could collect more freebies. I understand the appeal. A gift is a gift. But the more we let convenience and handouts dictate our day, the more we hand over our freedom. And that's the scariest trade of all. Some businesses know this too well. They host health workshops or travel giveaways, but they come with hidden costs. A couple from Florida told me about their experience, a free bus tour, they were told. But once they arrived, they learned the museum tickets weren't included. And the tour guide? Just a salesperson pitching vitamins. Some of the folks stayed anyway, thinking, well, we came all this way. Others left quietly, feeling tricked but too polite to complain. Too often, the older generation is targeted with offers that sound generous, but are really just traps in disguise. And here's the saddest part. Many seniors don't even enjoy these activities. They go because their friends go, because their neighbors expect them to, because doing nothing feels worse. But chasing discounts and freebies day after day doesn't give your life direction. It only fills time. And filling time isn't the same as living meaningfully. The truth is, the easiest habits are often the ones that pull us down. Like sliding down a playground slide. Once you start, gravity does the rest. Slowing down is much harder than picking up momentum toward mediocrity. They call it the slide rule of aging. Once you let go of structure, ambition, and purpose, it's easy to fall into a rhythm of passivity. But the worst part? It feels normal. There's a saying, dead fish go with the flow. It takes a live one to swim upstream. And in retirement, we have to decide, do we drift or do we push ourselves to keep swimming? Back in my town, there's a man named Harold who once told me, the biggest threat to my retirement isn't money. It's losing track of who I am. He was right. You can prepare financially, physically, even socially. But if you stop feeding your sense of purpose, things fall apart fast. A lot of older folks fall into routines that seem harmless at first. Morning TV, a late breakfast, an hour or two scrolling through the same news or videos, a nap. Then maybe a neighbor stops by, or you head to the store even when you don't need anything, just for some kind of human contact. Day after day, that loop becomes your life. And before you realize it, it starts shrinking you. Then there are those social dynamics that come with idleness. You know the ones. The gossip circles. The endless debates about whose grandkid did what, who married who, whose son-in-law bought a new car or moved out of state. Conversations stop being about ideas or inspiration, and instead turn into little contests of judgment. You start hearing those backhanded comments. Well, I heard, or can you believe she? And sure, it might feel harmless in the moment, but words carry weight, especially when passed from one person to another in a community. It's a dangerous loop. One unfiltered comment becomes gossip. Gossip becomes an assumption. And before you know it, someone's reputation is bruised, not because of truth, but because someone was bored and had too much time. That's the thing about having too much idle time. It doesn't always make you peaceful. Sometimes, it just gives you space to feed the wrong thoughts. And the consequences aren't just emotional. They can be physical too. Take Bruce, a retired plumber. Lived alone, had a strong personality. Used to play cards with a group at the local senior hall. But over time, the games turned competitive. Bets got higher. He started losing, not just money, but his temper. One evening, in the middle of an argument over a disputed move, his blood pressure spiked. He collapsed. Emergency services were called, and doctors later said it was a hypertensive crisis triggered by stress. Turns out Bruce had a history of high blood pressure. But because the games had become his only real social outlet, he couldn't pull away, even when it was hurting him. Another man I knew, Peter, 65, living in an apartment building in Pennsylvania, loved playing chess with money on the line. It started casually, but quickly consumed his evenings. He stopped eating on time, skipped family events, even lost sleep thinking about strategy. And then one day, while deep in a match, he just collapsed. Doctors said it was a stroke. The culprit? Untreated high blood pressure, worsened by stress and fatigue. His wife had begged him to slow down, but he couldn't. Not until his body forced him to. These aren't rare stories. Across small towns and big cities, there are countless seniors whose quiet addictions, gambling, gossip, overstimulation, are slowly pulling them under. And worse still, many don't even realize it. Because it doesn't look like danger. It looks like just passing time. And when that behavior affects public spaces, the image of older adults begins to change for the worse. In parks, I've seen groups of seniors lay out their chessboards right on the sidewalk, blocking foot traffic. Pedestrians are forced to step down into the street, dodging bikes and cars. In community centers, loud music from dance groups drowns out nearby reading rooms. Kids trying to nap, young parents needing quiet, it all gets swept aside. Some older groups even claim public spaces like their private clubs. A plaza becomes their permanent gathering place, and anyone who objects is labeled disrespectful. But here's the truth, being older doesn't mean being entitled. Respect is mutual. And if we want to be treated with kindness, we have to model that same kindness toward others, especially the younger ones still learning how to see us. It goes beyond noise or space. It's about the tone we carry in our voices, the words we choose, and the way we move through the world. Too often, I hear seniors speak as if they're exempt from decency just because they've lived longer. There's a difference between wisdom and superiority. A wise person speaks less, listens more, and chooses their words carefully. But some retirees, without the daily filter of a workplace or professional setting, begin to say things they never would have dared when they were younger. Crude jokes, loud opinions, judgments about people they barely know. And when they're called out, they say, "Oh please, I've earned the right to say what I want." But have we? The truth is, when we stop measuring our words, we stop respecting the impact they carry. And we don't just damage others, we chip away at our own dignity. I've even seen retirees spreading misinformation, rumors, conspiracy theories, sometimes online, sometimes in person. And in a time when the truth already feels hard to find, this kind of behavior does real harm. We've all known someone who says, "I'm just speaking from experience." But experience is only valuable when it's paired with humility. Without that, it turns into arrogance. Let's not be the kind of elders people avoid. Let's be the ones they remember, kindly, admiringly, gratefully. Because aging isn't a free pass to care less. It's a call to care more, to be better, to leave behind something honorable, not just habitual. And that brings me to something more hopeful. When done right, retirement can be the most powerful, most liberated season of your life. No deadlines, no external pressures, just time to reflect, to create, to serve, to enjoy. But only if we treat it that way. Just like spring leads to summer and eventually harvest, our later years can be just as fruitful if we plant the right seeds. Whether that's volunteering at a local shelter, learning to play an instrument, mentoring a young person, or simply reading books that expand your mind, every action counts. You don't have to climb mountains. You just have to keep walking forward. There's something I believe with all my heart. Just because we've retired doesn't mean we've finished growing. Water still flows downhill, yes, but people, we should always be climbing. Even if our legs grow weaker, our spirit should still reach upward. Retirement isn't the end. It's the beginning of a second spring, a time to bloom all over again. Everywhere around us, the world is renewing itself. The sun still rises, birds still sing, kids still laugh. That's not a coincidence. That's a reminder. As long as we're breathing, we're part of that life too. So what can we do? Start by finding hobbies that truly lift you up, not ones that drain you or disrupt others. If you love dancing, go for it. But maybe turn down the music just a bit. Find a quiet space where others won't be disturbed. Consider the community, not just your own joy. If you enjoy reading, dive deep. Libraries are treasures, and even smartphones can be tools for learning, if we use them right. Watch documentaries instead of gossip. Read stories instead of rumors. Feed your mind the same way you would feed a child, with care. And please, help where you can. Volunteer. Smile at a stranger. Visit someone lonelier than you. Because the truth is, every good deed builds something far beyond this moment. It builds a legacy. And that legacy becomes the light your children and grandchildren walk by. You don't need to be a saint. But if you can make someone's day a little better, a little brighter, do it. It adds up. Now let's talk about one of the hardest parts of retirement, the social part. You're going to meet people with habits that wear you down. Some may always complain. Others might pressure you to join activities that don't feel right, or ask you to spend time or money in ways that drain you instead of energize you. You don't need to say yes just to fit in. There's no universal rule for belonging in retirement. And it's okay to drift from people who no longer walk in the same direction as you. Surround yourself with those who speak gently, who act kindly, who live intentionally. Stay away from the loud, the bitter, the boastful. Their energy will pull you down. Instead, look for people with a spark, folks who plant flowers in their yard, who smile at dogs passing by, who still get excited about learning something new. Be with them, learn from them, and become like them. Because here's the truth we forget. Our world may shrink with age, but our hearts don't have to. Neither does our spirit. And never, ever believe that you're too old to change. I've met a man who started painting at 76. A woman who learned Italian at 80 just to speak to her grandson's new wife. A retired chef who began writing a cookbook using recipes passed down for 3 generations, finally giving his family something to cherish forever. These aren't miracles. These are decisions. They chose to keep reaching, even when it would have been easier to sit back. And I hope you do too. You see, society might call you sir or ma'am out of habit, but that's not just formality. It's respect. It means you're still a model, a leader, someone people look to, especially the younger ones. So let's be worthy of that. Let's speak with grace. Let's act with integrity. Let's show the world that growing older doesn't mean growing bitter. It means growing deeper. Your grandkids don't need you to be wealthy. They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present, to listen, to guide gently, not lecture loudly, to show them what aging with dignity looks like. And the world? It needs elders more than ever. Elders who walk calmly through the chaos, who remind everyone else that it's okay to slow down, breathe, and think before speaking. Be that elder. Be that calm. And if today you're feeling a little tired, a little small, or even a little invisible, remember this. The quietest stars still light the night sky. Your story still matters. Your presence still matters. You still matter. So don't slide down the path of indifference. Don't let habits replace passion. And don't let your name be remembered only by the mailbox or the medical charts. Live in a way that makes someone say, because of you, I believe growing old can be beautiful. And if this message speaks to you, if it touched something deep inside, I ask you to share it. Share it with a friend, a neighbor, or even just by living it. Because you never know who might need this reminder right now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for still caring. And thank you for being here.